Do you want me to use the questions as guiding or just?
No, that's for
Okay,
you, the
that's-
questions, yeah.
Have you ever grown up somewhere your entire life, only to realize one day that what you thought was yours, people are arguing over whether it's theirs? This question fascinates me, the idea of possession, who owns things, and what makes you think that you own something and someone else doesn't. And so something I'm really fascinated about is the idea of unrecognized nations. So we have the United Nations, we have the world, we have lots of books of maps that tell us where is where and what border is where and when did that border become that border. But what I studied in college and what I'm really passionate about are actually places that truly exist that are not recognized by anybody else. In college I studied two of these places in particular, and I want to tell you about one of them. It's called Nagorno-Karabakh. It's a small, maybe like 200 square miles of land in between Armenia and Azerbaijan, which if you also know that I love the Eurovision Song Contest, you know there's like a whole story there. But this place in particular is a group of people who call themselves Nagorno-Karabakh, right? You're not going to find this in any historical map. You're not going to find it in history books written in the 1900s or the 1800s. It's a group of people who now are what's called de facto independent. So they live in this land, they do speak Armenian, but they don't identify as Armenian. They identify as these other people who have an entire history that they believe is separate from everybody around them. And while you have people over the border who speak the same language that they do, they believe that they are different and they self-govern. And their history stems from this crazy myth about this ancient people called the Albanians, not the one across from Italy, but this other group of Albanians, who founded this land, who had like these mythical creatures who bestowed upon them like these great powers. And then over time, just like the Greek gods and every other myth, dissipated. And what you were left with were these people in this place called Nagorno-Karabakh. And during the Soviet Union, it was part of like this big conglomerate of places, and so no one really worried about are we a country or are we not a country, because they looked around at all their neighbors and said, you used to be a country and you're not anymore, so I guess we don't care anymore, right? And this was also way before the early 1900s when you had states, right? The idea of a country was something that was founded in the mid-1800s and hadn't really spread that far east yet. And so it wasn't until 1990, when the Soviet Union fell apart, and you had the Armenians saying, hey, we're Armenians, and you had the Azeris saying, hey, we're Azeris, and the Ukrainians saying, hey, we're Ukrainians. They had these people in Nagorno-Karabakh being like, wow, if we just call ourselves something, and we say like, hey, this is us, they're gonna like give us a color on the map. Maybe we'll be blue, maybe we'll be red, I don't know. And so what ended up happening were they tried to declare their own statehood. But the problem was Armenia wanted them to be a part of them, and Azerbaijan wanted them to be a part of them. And so they started fighting over this land. And you have these people sitting there in the middle saying, why are you fighting over us? We are like totally our own thing. You live in that apartment, you live in that apartment, and we live here. And so what's fascinating is that that story is the same story that's true in a place like Transnistria, and a place like Abkhazia, and a place like South Ossetia, and all these other places that are all smitten around the globe, where people who just want to rule themselves are being fought over by two other powers.